By Johann Georg Büttner, schoolmaster of Brunswick. I have taught many boys in my long career, sons of masons, merchants, and ministers alike. Some were clever, others diligent. A few even bright enough to grasp Latin verse before their voices deepened. But only once, in all my years, did I meet a boy so extraordinary that he seemed less a child of men than a spark from the mind of God, or, if not God, then from that deep and eternal logic which governs the very bones of the universe. His name was Carl Friedrich Gauss. He came to me at 7 years old, small, serious, unremarkably dressed, yet with eyes that held a strange stillness, like glass covering an infinite depth. His family was poor. His father a bricklayer who valued honest labor over intellectual pursuits. His mother barely literate, but blessed with an intuitive intelligence she passed to her son. You could already see the war between circumstance and destiny stirring in the child. His manner was modest, his speech quiet, but he carried himself like someone who already knew where he was going, like a traveler merely passing through our mundane world on his way to realms I could scarcely imagine. I remember the day, the very hour, I realized what he was. It was a cold morning in the classroom, the kind where boys' noses drip and the coal stove sputters against the wind whistling through the cracks in the window panes. Frost had etched delicate patterns on the glass mathematics of nature that seemed, in retrospect, a fitting backdrop. I had a pounding headache, and the boys were particularly rowdy that day, their energies heightened by the bitter cold that kept them confined indoors. To give myself a moment's peace, I assigned them a laborious task. Sum all numbers from 1 to 100. Write your work. Stay seated. No noise. It was a calculation designed to occupy them for the better part of an hour. Time enough, I hoped, for my temples to stop throbbing. I turned to the blackboard to compose myself, already dreading the tedious corrections ahead. And then, I swear to you, it could not have been 30 seconds later when I heard the whisper of shoes on the wooden floor behind me. I turned, irritation rising in my throat. There was Gauss, standing at my desk, slate in hand. He said nothing, only held it out, his expression neither triumphant nor anxious, but simply expectant. Written upon it, in perfect chalk, 50-50. I nearly struck him for insolence. Indeed, my hand twitched toward the rod I kept for disciplining the impertinent, but something in his demeanor, the calm certainty in those eyes, stopped me, thank God. What is this? I asked, my voice sharper than intended. He explained, in that soft voice of his that somehow commanded more attention than the loudest shout. 1 and 100 make 101, so do 2 and 99, and 3 and 98. This pattern continues, 50 pairs in all. Each pair sums to 101. 50 times 101 is 5050. No hesitation, no copying, no erasures, no lengthy calculations marching down his slate, just the clean, inevitable truth, as though it had always been there, waiting in the air for someone to catch it. That was the day I stopped being his teacher and began to be his witness. From then on, I kept a watchful eye on young Carl. While the other boys stumbled through multiplication tables and basic fractions, he devoured algebra as if it were mother's milk, taught himself geometry from old books I lent him, and within a few years was exploring infinite series and number theory without guidance. In our lessons, I would sometimes catch him gazing out the window, his fingers tracing invisible patterns on his desk. Not in distraction, I came to understand, but in communion with some mathematical truth that had captured his imagination. I brought his work to the attention of Martin Bartels, an accomplished mathematician who later became his mentor, and eventually we secured the patronage of the Duke of Brunswick. Without that support, the boy might have been lost to poverty, swinging a mason's hammer instead of shaping the invisible architecture of mathematics. The Duke, to his eternal credit, recognized what we had found. Not merely a bright child, but something approaching a miracle. He will not need to earn his bread through the sweat of his brow. The Duke told me once, after Carl had solved a problem that had confounded the university professors, his mind is worth more to humanity than 1,000 strong backs. Years passed, and I lost sight of him for a time. My own life continued. More students, more lessons, more winters with frosted windows. I heard whispers. Brilliant student at the University of Göttingen. Reclusive genius prone to bouts of melancholy. Mathematician who worked with the intensity of a prophet receiving divine revelation. But it was not until I read his Disquisitions Arithmetici that I fully grasped the scale of the mind I had glimpsed in my classroom. The book was dense, impenetrable to ordinary minds like mine, yet threaded through with a crystalline beauty that even I could perceive, like seeing the shadow of a cathedral through fog. And then came the moment that stunned me. He was just 19 when he did it, a regular polygon with 17 sides, constructed with only a ruler and compass. Do you understand what that means? No one had done such a thing in over 2,000 years. Not since the ancient Greeks laid the foundations of geometry. Euclid himself might have wept with joy to see it. Archimedes might have recognized a kindred spirit across the vast gulf of time. The construction of the 17 gon was not just a mathematical achievement. It was a signal, a beacon, a declaration from the gods of number that a new interpreter had arrived in our mortal realm, and I had once watched his small hand write a simple answer on a slate. I remember the day I learned of it. I sat at my desk, holding the paper with trembling hands, the description of his methods swimming before my aging eyes. I did not weep, but something like weeping filled my chest. A solemn, sacred pride that expanded until I could scarcely breathe, not because I had taught him. Who can claim to have taught the wind to blow or the fire to burn? No, it was because I had seen him, and I had not looked away. I had not mistaken the extraordinary for the merely precocious. I had glimpsed infinity in a child's eyes, and I had understood enough to step aside and let it grow. A mind like that, I now believe, appears perhaps once in a millennium, 1,000 years of birth and death, of kingdoms rising and falling, of wars and plagues and discoveries. And in all that time, perhaps one child like Carl Friedrich Gauss, and by sheer accident of time and place, I was the man who first gave him a slate and a piece of chalk. In my old age, I no longer crave recognition or accolades for my teaching. The boys who passed through my classroom have grown into men who barely remember my name. But when I pass from this world, I hope the record shows that once, long ago, in a modest classroom in Brunswick, a poor boy was given a useless task by a tired teacher, and returned not with obedience, but with a glimpse into the infinite. And I was wise enough to see it. Sometimes at night, when sleep eludes me, I imagine him still, that small figure approaching my desk, slate in hand. In these twilight visions, I see more clearly what I only sensed then. The faint luminescence that seemed to surround him, as though numbers themselves had taken human form to walk among us for a while. I see him now, not just as the boy he was, but as what he represented. Proof that even in our mundane world, miracles still occur. They come not with thunder or divine proclamation, but quietly, in the form of a child who can see what others cannot. Carl Friedrich Gauss taught me more than I ever taught him. He showed me that true education is not filling empty vessels, but recognizing the rare flame when it appears, and having the humility to feed it without smothering it with our own limitations. The greatest honor of my life was not teaching a genius, but simply being the first to notice him passing through our world.